Thanks, Earl. Appreciate it. All right, well, I'm Kevin Sampels. I know that they made some announcement when everybody was rustling around. I just want to quickly say I am a retired Air Force colonel, been out for about 4.5 years and working in industry, but I did 37 damn good years in the Air Force, and I am really super proud to be here with all of you today. Okay, well, we have a really phenomenal panel of folks from industry. And one of the things that I do right now, being in industry, is I'm on the National Defense Industrial Association Log Management Division. And they have a booth in the exhibition hall. I am wanting to tell you that if you're in uniform or in government service, your membership in NDIA is free, completely free. I didn't really know much at all about NDIA until I was about a year away from retiring. So if you're planning on separating or retiring soon, or even if you just want to be involved with a phenomenal organization that has a lot of government and obviously industry participation, I highly encourage you to join. It is a really great organization, and I want to also thank LOA for hosting or allowing us to have our NDIA conference yesterday when LOA-U was going on. It was a great conference, and I've been trying to make some posts on LinkedIn. I'm nowhere in the stratosphere as J.D. Duvall when it comes to taking selfies, but I do try to put information out on LinkedIn. So consider joining NDIA. It's free, and you'll be part of a great community. So the panel that we have today, really phenomenal folks, and I know you'll recognize at least a couple of them. And I'm going to start with, and it's difficult to say Bruce Litchfield, but General Litchfield is the Vice President of Sustainment Operations for Lockheed Martin's Aeronautics business. In this capacity, he's responsible for and leads the execution of the Aeronautics Global Sustainment business. He also directs operations in Greenville, South Carolina, and Montreal, Canada, in addition to Aeronautics field team operations worldwide. And prior to joining Lockheed Martin, he served 34 years in the Air Force, retiring with the rank of Lieutenant General. He commanded 6 U.S. Air Force units at every level, from squadron to standing up and commanding the Air Force Sustainment Center. He is the architect of an innovative leadership and governance system called the Art of the Possible. So, Mr. Litchfield, thank you very much for being on the panel. Now, Mr. Mike Manazir. Did I get it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man.
Perfect.
He's in my head. He's been saying, no, that's not how you say it, Samples. You're an idiot. Thank you.
No, sir.
Thank you. Manazir. Okay. Mr. Mike Manazir is currently Vice President, Boeing Global Services, and he's responsible for bringing data-centric sustainment solutions to the U.S. government and international government customers to ensure mission success. From September 2017 to January 2021, Mike was Boeing Vice President, Navy Systems, bringing Navy and DoD perspectives to each Boeing business division leadership team to inform strategy, technology investment, and business decisions. And Rear Admiral Mike Manazir retired from the U.S. Navy on 1 August 2017 after 36 years of service. Mike, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Mr. Raj Shankar is the Vice President of Digital Transformation and Go-to-Market for the aerospace and government markets at Salesforce. For over 20 years, Raj has been delivering industry strategy and innovative solutions such as digital thread, digital twin, smart factory, aftermarket, and many others. In the emerging technology space using the Internet of Things, AR, VR, AI, ML, and a billion other acronyms, I have no idea what the heck it means. He's a smart guy, let's put it that way. In his current role, he leads enterprise strategy, partner engagement, industry thought leadership, and sector-specific digital solutions. And prior to his role at Salesforce, he was the Chief Technology Officer for the aerospace and defense business at DXC Technology. Raj, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And finally, Mr. Kenn Todorov is Sector Vice President and General Manager of the Global Sustainment and Modernization Division at Northrop Grumman Defense Systems. In this role, Kenn's team delivers mission-critical global product and digital logistics, sustainment, operations, and modernization solutions for air, sea, and ground systems and weapon system components. Most recently, Mr. Todorov served as the Vice President and General Manager of the Combat Systems and Mission Readiness Division, where he led teams to achieve notable business results in joint multi-domain operating solutions. Before joining Northrop Grumman, Mr. Todorov concluded a 30-year career in service at the United States Air Force and retiring at the rank of Brigadier General. Kenn, thanks for being here. Appreciate it very much. So clearly, we've got a pretty darn good panel today, and I've got a number of questions lined up, but I'm going to save some time at the end, obviously, for questions. So I think everybody knows how the questions are being fed in, and Dara Hobbs, I think you're out in the audience and can be looking at the questions as they come in from the audience. I highly encourage you to be engaged, ask tough questions. Someday, whether you believe it or not, you will be in industry somewhere, doing something. 37 years, I thought I'd never retire. Guess what? I retired, and now I'm in industry. We continue to serve in industry. I'm not wearing, OCPs or ABUs, or when I came in, the pickle suit, okay? But I still serve. We all serve our nation, and we're all critical to the success of our country and keeping peace around the world, okay? Don't ever forget that. So, all right, there you go. And now I'd like to sing the Star Spangled Banner. No, that's not true. Okay, I'm going to take a seat, get those questions going, but I'm going to start off with a round of questions right now. Okay, can you hear me? All right, I'm going to start with Bruce. Man, that's tough. I don't know if I can.
You know, my mom never had any trouble calling me Bruce.
Okay. So Bruce, I can't do it, General. Sorry, I just can't. So how is your team at Lockheed looking to lower the sustainment costs that we obviously have to be tremendously concerned about, but yet still ensuring the level of readiness that we need to serve our nation?
Gee, thanks, Kevin. Starting out with a softball. Why not,
yeah,
right?
Why not? Why not?
Hey, first, Log Nation, thanks for all you do for our country. Thanks for how you serve, and thanks for the readiness that you provide. And for all the LOA executives, thank you for setting up this conference. I can't tell you, and I know I speak for a lot, how energizing it is to see smiles and to see faces and to see people motivated to just feel what normal looks like again. So thank you, everybody, for bringing this together. All right, cost. I have to start out with saying I can't separate cost from effectiveness. And if you saw earlier when Jay put up the quote from Secretary Austin that we will defend every inch of NATO if necessary, no one will care what it costs, they'll only care if we're effective. So you have to link cost and effectiveness together, so cost effective. And I'm going to start by saying, big to small, that I have had a long belief that the cost of readiness will determine the size and capability of the force, and the size and capability of the force will determine how we fight and win. So then, to understand cost, you got to kind of break it down. And I know that the big question, and I think you got it yesterday, and Audrey Brady answered it, was how, F-35 costs, where do you stand? Well, when she answered the question yesterday, it was a 45% reduction in what we control that we've reduced the cost of. So how has that happened? It's not by accident. We took a very methodical approach using what we call the Sustainment Success System to look at what drives cost. You think about it in three areas: people, parts, and fuel. I'm going to take fuel out of the equation because some parts of that we really don't control, but you can affect it through technology. But in the people side, we've been able to scale through the F-35 without adding people in the commensurate numbers with aircraft, through technology, through automation, through artificial intelligence, and through machine learning. We've been able to improve the parts reliability. We've been able to utilize improved maintenance practices in the field. We've been able to do things that we're able to give more power and more decision-making to the maintainers. And so we compass all that with our Sustainment Success System that's focused on four areas: reliability, analytics, condition-based maintenance, and a cognitive supply chain. And through those elements, we're able to minimize the parts we need in the field, but still provide what I would call the effectiveness and the supply rates. We've been able to give the maintainer the effectiveness that they need to make decisions, and we've kept the parts on the jet longer. In fact, if you look at the proportion of parts that have never come off the jet, it's truly remarkable. Not by accident, still an incredibly effective weapon system, and yet the costs are down 45%. That's kind of the approach we take.
Okay, great, thank you. I was trying to give you an easy one up front. They
Thanks.
just get
I appreciate that.
progressively more.
You could have asked who's going to win the Super Bowl next year, but no.
Okay. All right, so Mike, from your vantage point at Boeing, what do you consider the barriers and then the enablers of modernizing sustainment?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, and I'd like to echo the General's points. It's so wonderful to be here in person and to see everybody and to truly partner with you here, and I'm humbled to be on stage with our industry partners. This theme of partnership is really huge as we go into the conflict in Europe, as we look at the potential conflict in the Western Pacific. This near-peer competition means that we've got to more strongly partner across the defense industrial base. It's cool to be here. You know, I actually thought it was pretty cool to be a fighter pilot. It's pretty cool to land on ships, but you guys are cool. So I'm kind of re-engaging my own index of what's cool. You all are cool. So I'm going to channel two comments from General Barry to say where we're looking for. And the first one is that this partnership that he said right at the very end to engage. And the second one is predictive. Predictive. This new fight is going to be about moving information. So the machine creates information, we take that data and we create knowledge, and then the wisdom from that knowledge. So what do we do with the data we're getting off of airplanes? The barrier is we're still buried on our old systems. When Boeing delivers you an airplane, it might be a digital airplane like a T-7, or it might be a C-17 coming out of the depot. We think about sustainment after we deliver that piece of metal. We need to build in the sustainment and the training thread into the design like Boeing is doing with their T-7 and MQ-25 offerings to the United States Navy. And as we do that, you start to think about how we're going to use the data coming off the airplanes. So overcoming the barriers is partnering together to be able to understand that there are new ways to do our logistics business. Consider right now that all of our logistics information is running around on FOUO networks. If you change the destination of a part, transpose a couple of alphanumerics, that part isn't going where you want it to go. If we get predictive analytics, so some of the enablers that Boeing is using right now is to take information off of the jets to be able to reduce the parts that have to go to the front line, the front base, the expeditionary base for either an Air Force expeditionary wing, a Navy carrier, or Marines on the ground operating aviation units, to be able to keep parts on wing for longer. We're creating those tools to be able to do that right now, taking data off the airplane. So a couple categories in Boeing for enablers. We've taken, you might not think of a C-17 or a B-52 as a digital aircraft. There is data moving across a data bus there that on both of those airplanes that we can get a hold of. We built a box in the C-17 world called an aircraft data reasoner that takes information off the data bus, and you do have to sneaker net the card so it's not coming over a network. Got to sneaker net the card into a computer, but that tech is going to be able to tell you what that airplane is thinking. Less parts traveling, less people traveling. Now your supply chains that we're watching happen in Europe right now get to be less vulnerable for you. That's where predictive analytics comes in. And the last point I will tell you is that Boeing is investing right now in classified production spaces. Large fabrication of composites, edges, components, coatings. We're bringing that technology into our manufacturing cases so that we have sustainment built into the design. Specific example, I'll get off the stage, give it back to Kevin. When we build an F-18 with our Northrop Grumman partner, and we take pieces of the airplane and join them in St. Louis, it takes us about a day and a half to put the F-18 together. That airplane, of course, designed in the 80s, stick-built, hand-built, got a drill, got a shim. T-7, 30 minutes. Because it's built with full-size determinant assembly. Big pieces are built digitally, move it around, join them together. The defect is a fraction of what it used to be. And so we're investing in that piece so that now we can take your needs out on the front lines, wherever you are, turn that data into wisdom, and be able to keep your airplanes up and ready more than they are now.
That's a great answer, thanks. Very interesting too. I'd love to see that process. That's great. Kenn, from Northrop's from your perspective at Northrop, you know, you're on stage with your peers. You know how things obviously are operating in Northrop, but how do you think, you know, things across industry as a whole are going? You know, Mike just mentioned the relationship he has between Boeing and Northrop, but in general, do you think that the dynamics across industry are where they need to be, or are there things that can and should be done to robust those relationships, and with government?
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to be in the panel. Congratulations, LOA, for 40 amazing years. I was really impressed today to hear Jay go through some of the history, and much of which I didn't know. So really a great organization. Great to see all of you. Privileged to be here. I would say, you know, from the industry perspective, those of you who haven't been in industry yet, to your point, perhaps many of you will be at some point, some things may surprise you. And what I mean by that is we are all after the same thing at the end of the day. Yes, we're all working in for-profit spaces, and that matters to our companies. But together, we have you in mind. And you know, we use a term, you may have heard of it, competimates. We can go one day to the next where we're fiercely competitive with one another on one venture, and the very next day, the same people in the room we're working together, hand in hand. And so I think at the end of the day, important to remember and realize, and I know my teammates up here do, and I've seen the behaviors in places they work, that we all are in this together for you. And I mean that sincerely. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. I've learned a lot in my 6 years on the industry side. Didn't really know what to expect when I came over to the industry side, but I've been really pleasantly surprised at what I've found. And you know, having served myself, to your opening point, Kevin, we're still serving. I know we all feel that way, and it's a real privilege to continue to do that. So yes, we're on the industry side, but we're serving your needs and the things that you need to get done to get your mission done and accomplished. I'll tell you the other part of the dynamic right now that's real, and I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of head nods in a moment. There's a real war on, forgive me for using that term, there's a real battle for talent. You know, industry needs to be staffed and manned and have the people, the smart people like you in the fold, if you will, to continue to know what our customers are wanting. And so each one of us is, you know, after a large segment of the talent out there. And if you see me on a break, I'll give you a card because we'd love to talk to you about a role at Northrop Grumman. But I think, you know, that, see me before you see any of these guys. But that battle is real, and I don't say that from a self-serving standpoint. Any one of you would be great fits in any one of these companies, and I'm sure the time comes you'll make that.
Trying to dig out. I see it.
Trying to dig out.
It's too deep. It's too deep, Ken. You're down there.
Listen, so let me get to some more altruism here. Opportunities matter, and the mission matters, but their values really matter the most. And at the end of the day, each of these companies has a set of core values, and they're very similar. And if you look at any one of them, you'll see that really at the end of the day, it's about supporting the warfighter. That's what drives us. That's what makes us engaged and want to come to work. That's what makes us want to understand from you what your needs are. And listen, the challenge obviously is incredibly real and challenging. And so we want to be a partner with you on all that. So I would say at the end of the day, the industry dynamic across these companies is solid, with a focus on the people that are in the audience and wanting to do the right thing.
Yeah, I was giving you a hard time, but okay. I know where you're coming from, and we all do, right? I mean, it is definitely a market now where these companies, whether they're OEMs or mid-size, small, there is a real need for talent, and it will come for you eventually. You are really missing an opportunity if you don't take a chance to come up and talk to these gentlemen, to me, other folks that are wearing these kinds of things. And it's not that anybody's trying to outpace somebody else, it's that we care. You know, we are not the enemy, we are you. And there are minefields to avoid, and there are great places to look, but take advantage of the fact that there are people here who used to be wearing the uniform or who have been serving their nation wearing a suit the whole time, but we want to work together for what's best for our nation. So, you know, I was joking around with you, but I think the message you delivered is spot on, and I appreciate it. So, Raj, you and I talked. I know, and I don't think you're going to have a problem with me saying this, you never served in uniform.
That's right.
But you have been serving our nation in other capacities. And we appreciate that greatly. You don't have to have worn a uniform to be a patriot and to be doing what's right for our country. So I just want to thank you publicly. I know you said, oh, Kevin, I've never been in uniform. It doesn't matter, okay? You serve your nation in a different way, so thank you.
So Kevin, you just stole my opening line.
Oh, okay. I haven't even asked you a question yet.
I know.
Okay, I am going to ask you a question. So from your position at Salesforce, I know you're involved in a lot of, deep technical stuff, stuff that I, try to wrap my brain around, but I'm a knuckle dragger, okay? So help us understand what the digital thread is and, how it applies to the aerospace and the defense industry. Try to keep it at a level that I can understand,
Sure.
okay? So that's the bar, all right?
Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you so much for the question. And I just want to say this here. I'm really honored to be here amongst all of you. As Kevin was referring, I haven't directly served, but I've been part of the Defense Industrial Base for many, many years now, and I'm proud to support our missions that way. Coming to the digital thread, you may hear a lot of different definitions for the digital thread. Mostly when people talk about model-based engineering, they refer to digital thread. When you talk to software vendors, they may talk about digital thread from the standpoint of being the link between the physical and digital worlds. You ask Gartner, and they may say they have a definition that's about data flow across design, manufacturing, and sustainment. And if you really ask me, all of those definitions are true. But again, I'm about simplification, right? At a very fundamental level, digital thread is about allowing for data and processes across functional domains so that an organization can really move fast and can really make decisions faster and so forth. A lot of people typically focus on the data element when they talk about digital thread, but we all understand that, and I know a number of speakers yesterday at the NDIA conference spoke about processes being disjointed across functional domains as well. So it's key to remember that that's equally important as the data element. And we at Salesforce use a framework called Unlock, Analyze, Act, and Collaborate in how we enable the digital thread. And essentially, at a very fundamental level, Unlock is all about tapping into data wherever it resides, right? Whether that be in internal systems, external systems, partner, supplier systems, and so forth, being able to tap into data effectively, and then driving the analysis and insights, AI and ML and so forth, being able to make that data richer is what is part of Analyze, and then being able to act on it, rapidly collaborating with your stakeholders, and then driving decisions is equally important. So when you look at that from an industrial base standpoint, that could mean data and process flow across, design, procurement, manufacturing, service, and so forth. But it could equally apply, say on the war front. A commander needs to have, information across domains, across nations, across distributed supply chains, and so forth, so that they can act rapidly with the information that they have. So from a very fundamental standpoint, that's what the digital thread is all about.
I think I got it. I think I followed the great majority of what you said, so good job. Thank you very much. And digital, that's probably the term that we are hearing, digital and data, and it's all interconnected, and it's hugely important to how we advance our business. Mm-hmm. So everyone up here has that as, clearly on their scope of what they're focused on. So I'm curious, Bruce, how is your team at Lockheed integrating digital into your processes of sustainment? Can you kind of expand on what Raj was talking about and how it specifically applies to Lockheed?
Sure. So I think, Raj, you said something that we all have to take into account. There is no common definition of what the digital thread is. There's no combination of digital. So I'm going to give you my elementary education on it. I think there's two things, probably two areas very much different that we have to be able to talk about. That's legacy systems, the systems you're going to go to fight with today, and I'm going to call it the future systems. And the future systems, and I think, Mike, you alluded to it, there's some really cool stuff going on for how we're building systems for the future. And I will offer you this. If you're in the loggy world and you want to get involved in it, think about what you can do in the acquisition side of maybe a career broadening assignment to get yourself steeped in the future systems coming down. That's free career advice, but I'm going to tell you it's very helpful for you. On the current systems, what I'm going to tell you is there has to be a digital thread connected from the field to what I'm going to call it the central command post or central operating system, and then how you process that information to make decisions. And we've set up, and we really went after, how to connect the flight line as our center of gravity to being able to feed the analytical machines of the systems that you're going to use for tomorrow using analog systems that you have today, but condition that data so that the new machines can do it. And then apply the AI, apply the machine learning to be able to do it. And in the process we use, and this is where I'm going to tell you, you got to get smart in this area, is in the engineering for sustainment arena. And Secretary Kendall, before he became the SecAF, chaired a study from the national academies, and what he really talked about was having the sustainment infrastructure. And in that sustainment infrastructure, it doesn't matter whether your tail has a Lockheed or a Northrop or a Boeing, those are the decisions that have to be made to fight wars. And so we have to work together, and I like the word partnership, of defining what that infrastructure is so that we can feed the information from the field, condition it, and then be able to allow the warfighters to make the decisions on what, where, when, and who is going to be able to operate effectively doing it. And I think all of us, and this is where the danger comes in, all of us can find a piece of it. But a piece of it isn't going to connect the field to the operating center, to the warfighter, to the decision making. We have to operate as synergy. And I know that we're all doing it for our independent tails. We've all got to do it for the warfighter. And that's the part where I think there's digital for legacy and there's digital for future. And we've got to marry that together as an integrated warfighting team, both from the industry and from the the warfighting side of it, the people in uniform that are going to use it.
Okay. I'm going to try to leave 10 minutes at the end, so just for the panel members, let's move along, because I know we've got questions out there. Mike, you had an exciting life as a fighter pilot, but you now realize that's not nearly as exciting as being a loggie, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, I just want to bring that up.
You're good. No,
Okay.
I'm good, yeah.
So what do you think is cooler, fighter pilot or?
Loggie.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so from your perspective, what concerns do you have about the government and industry moving forward to tackle, some of these challenges that we have? Clearly China, who knows who the next actor is going to be. From your vantage point, what do you think we need to focus on?
You took 30 of my seconds, by the way. I just tell you that.
I'm the moderator. I get to do that.
Hey, what's really cool? I love that question with these three answers just now. First one is, from a career standpoint, till you're ready, please stay right where you are. Because part of this government industry thing is cultural. There's a cultural barrier between what we're doing.
Yep.
The digital thread, we're starting to discover how you can pull that through. I talked about C-17s as digitally enabled B-52s. There's nowhere they're digital. There's ones and zeros moving on a B-52. We can learn from that. Yeah. And Boeing is building what we call digitally native airplanes. We're building in supportability and sustainment into the design, to what Bruce and Raj talked about. And so this partnership with you, we've got to get over the fact that we have legacy industrial age systems supporting our platforms. We're going to deliver you a T-7A. We're going to deliver the Navy an MQ-25. And if we don't pay attention, we're going to put an industrial age sustainment system on top of those pieces of metal. So we've got to get to that point that Bruce was talking about. Yes, you have to put them together, but it is possible. Grab the data, get some wisdom out of it. What is Boeing doing about that? We're investing in 5G networks right now. Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Tinker Air Force Base, and McGuire. Now everybody's doing 5G. Internet of Things, so what? 5G. What does that do? Move information. We have a reach-back capability. If you go into the Boeing booth, you'll be able to put on the goggles, that somebody in a command center somewhere who knows a lot more, one of you professional chiefs out there that has decades maintaining a C-17, is talking to a young airman maintainer on the ground in Africa about how to fix something they can't figure it out. The goggles that the maintainer has on is being pitched back to the chief, and he's going, oh, okay, I see, go right here. We had aircraft on the ground in Africa as an RAF C-17, Royal Air Force. They've bought all ADRs, put them on their entire fleet, small fleet. There's something going on down on the ground. They're going to send a team down there and go do that. They got the card out of the ADR, brought it back to the UK, again, sneaker net, the tech had to fly it back. They plugged in the computer and said, oh, there's a switch in that airplane that makes that airplane do fun stuff down low when it's dropping paradrops, something like that. Switch is in the wrong position. Move the switch, airplane's fixed. Team didn't have to travel. That was reach back, okay, on top. So you can create this digital threat. But if we don't plan ourselves so that each individual tail can tell the system what it needs, we're going to continue to have too much money, to what General Barry talked about. We won't be able to turn the cost curve down. So the specific answer to your question is, I want you to do what you do and bring the full power of the companies that are represented up here and say, I'd like to do this. Can you guys do that? And you get the full power of our entire company.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal answer and exactly what we need. I appreciate it. That's great. Kenn, near peer, right? We're going into different situations that are very plausible in the near future. Are we doing everything that we need in the government and in industry to execute in a contested environment?
Well, first, there's been some really great things said from every member of this panel so far, so I hope you're paying some really good nuggets. You know, to that question, Bruce, you said something a moment ago that really resonated with me when you talked about the need for synergy. I think, are we doing everything we can? No. I think we need to be communicating better. I'll just say the collective we industry, and it's not just the large companies, the small businesses that are out there represented today as well. We need to be talking more, understanding each other more. And I know the people in this audience don't typically involve themselves in the requirements process, but grab a seat at the table when that conversation's happening, because you know, frankly, better than a lot of them who are writing those requirements that we come up with solutions for. So we need to be, I'll just say, more vocal. Again, from my experience from the military side, when I would host leaders from industry, and I was always, frankly, I was a little bit afraid to say too much, because I was worried about probity and competitions going on, and that's all, you know, we have to have that sort of that caution that we don't say too much. But you know, now where I'm sitting, I'd love to hear a lot more from you, and I'd love to have the dialogue, you know, more robust, if you will. And if you have to get us all in the same place at the same time, even better, so we can understand at the same time rather than one-on-one. But I think we need to be communicating better, given the challenges, given the speed at which, given what the chief has said in August of 2020 about accelerate change. You know, there's so many imperatives there that are, given the near-peer threat now, so much more crucial. The more we talk and communicate at every level to get that synergy, to Bruce's point, the better we'll be.
Yeah, thank you. So Raj, there has been so much in the news the past 12 to 18 months about the supply chain and, you know, problems at the ports, you know, people hacking into systems, sure, empty store shelves. You know, I mean, the supply chain and logistics has never been in the media more than it has been recently. So what do you think we need to do from your perspective in the technical standpoint to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and security of our supply chain?
So what I would say is, you know, the events of the past couple of years have clearly demonstrated that, you know, supply chains are very critical, and they can be crippled as well. You know, more so on the commercial side, where we've seen, you know, anything that you go and order is probably on a back order now. But the defense world is not, you know, has not been really spared from that as well. You know, there are certainly challenges there. And I would say, you know, from a logistics standpoint, it is, you know, it's not a supporting function. You know, it's something that we have to use to our advantage. And if you really think about supply chain execution, you can think about it in a couple of aspects, right? So when you think about, you know, a commander that's out in the war front, it's also about capabilities and services and moving all of that to the tactical edge. But at the same time, it's also about coordinating capacity with the industrial base. Right? You need to be able to produce the right things. Maybe you need more antennas out there, and those have to be manufactured very quickly and sent over to the location and so forth. So how do you go about doing that, right? And this is only going to happen if, from a defense industrial base standpoint, we adopt the concept of the digital thread, creating that single source of truth across the entire ecosystem with all the different stakeholders. Otherwise, you're never going to derive the speed, the agility, and as many of my panelists were saying, the feedback loops that are essential so that you can actually move fast with information. So to me, that is the single biggest thing that I would say from a logistics standpoint. It's never more important than now to really use that to our advantage. And then, as Mike was talking about legacy systems supporting our businesses and so forth, we really have to think about, what are the future technologies that are going to be in play so that we can actually leverage all our assets, right, all the stakeholders in the ecosystem so that we can act fast.
Great, thank you. Dara, you out there? And I'm sure we've got, oh, there you are. You're right there. We're crying out loud. Bring it on, sister. What do we got?
So at this point, only have time for one question. The discussion's been excellent. Thank you so much. So let me leave with this.
You're on now.
Better? There we go. All right. How is industry partnering together to come up with common standards and practices that align to meet end user needs? For any panel member.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah.
How is industry partnering to come up with common standards and practices that align to meet end user needs?
Yeah, I think the fact that we started talking about similar themes up here, through this association, through the Aerospace Industrial Association, AIA, through NDIA, industry is getting together to mostly parrot the need, or parrot to the government the need for standards, S1000 standards, so we can do software standards. We're not used to software standards in this kind of company, and Raj can talk about this a lot more than me. But I think this partnership across industry and realizing that if the government owns the interfaces and owns the standards, then we can play with that. Open systems architecture across our companies. If I bring a Boeing module and stick it into a Lockheed Martin ground station for the MQ-25, it's going to work. We are partnered on MQ-25 right now, Lockheed Martin and Boeing. They've got the ground station. We're inputting our vehicle into that using the same standard. We've got to adopt those standards and say, these are standards, much like all of the other standards, the ISO standards that are out there to do that. Last point I will make, and Kenn just talked about it. I've got to underline this as my last comment. If we don't change, we are going to lose. As a fighter pilot, I can't lose. There's no second place for fighter pilots. Accelerate, change, or lose, just from CQ Brown to me, I hear that loud and clear, and we all ought to. Yeah. We cannot afford to lose, and I just would say that I want to underline, highlight, bold it, stick it up there on top of the screen to say that is our North Star. We need to accelerate that change.
Can I, Mike, I think this is accelerate, change, or lose, but there's something really exciting, and you mentioned a component of that open systems architecture. I think if we look at the JIATO environment that we have for the joint all-domain warfare that has to go on, it's all about interconnected systems. Yep. When you talk about the battle management system, it's about the flow of information. And when you talk about the common system architecture, it's what goes on the platforms. I think we have a great opportunity now, and this is where I'm going to really make an impassioned plea to Log Nation. JIATO is not just for the folks that put weapons on the ground. It's for the sustainers to be able to work in an agile combat environment, to be able to support dispersed operations across and be able to get parts where they need, when they need it, and to know where to do it. If we become an integrated team working the requirements for JIATO, working the battle management system, and capitalizing on the open systems architecture, there is no limit to the future of what we are going to be able to do to dominate on the battlefield, and I think that's how you accelerate change and win.
Yep, agree.
So I was also going to go where you went and where you went both, so I guess I'll just use my time to tell jokes about fighter pilots. Bash, no, don't start. Don't start with me. I'm a rotary wing guy. Proud of it. No, seriously, great points to my left and right. I don't want to just say ditto, but I think Bruce just made something, another profound comment. You know, a lot of talk about the joint in space, and I'll give you another one, JADC2, all domain command and control, which you're thinking, well, what does that have to do with me and the audience? Has everything to do with you, right? It's not just a warfighter kinetic kind of thing. How do we take that connectivity between services in all domains and translate it to the fight that you're in and the things that you concern yourself about? And so, again, you know, across industry, I do think there's strong partnerships trying to help solve those problems. I invite you to have a seat at the table. I welcome you, and please let your voice be heard, because otherwise it won't come, we won't design the solutions as robust as they need to be without your voice. So thank you for what you do.
And as Kevin was warning me at the beginning of the session, you know, I have to keep this in really simple terms. So I'll take a very simple approach to this answer. I'm going to be a little provocative here, but just the simple fact of, you know, we talk a lot about data and the ability to use data and so forth. And I also heard this from speakers yesterday that they were talking about, we spend a lot of time worrying about data, right? We worry about how do we classify it, how do we store it, how do we secure it, and all of those are important. You know, we work a lot on, you know, data reference architectures and things like that. And on the other hand, we also talk about emerging technologies like AI and ML and how do we use it and so forth. So to me, we need to find that middle ground in how we apply those technologies. You know, can we look at data in terms of, and I mentioned this when I spoke about the unlock part of the framework, you know, let's tap into data wherever it resides, right? Let's not, you know, make this a case of spending a lot of time and investments on getting it all to one place, normalizing the data and so forth, because we know that that takes a lot of effort and time and investment. So how can we be more, you know, agile in terms of looking at emerging tech, applying that in the right sense so that we can tap into data where it resides. Let's now take the data, make it rich, you know, derive the insights from it, and then use it to our advantage. So that's what I would say, and that obviously requires greater collaboration between industry and our armed forces. It requires that feedback loop that we spoke about. But again, at the end of the day, we are all on the same team. And that's important to think about.
Hey, Kevin, I know we're out of time, but I do think that we ought to make sure that Mike knows he is now an honorary member of the Cool Kids Club.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. I want to thank Mike, Ken, and Bruce, and Raj, seriously, for taking time, because I know how much you have on your plate every single day back at home station. So thank you very, very much for being here and for your comments. Do not miss an opportunity to reach out to one of these folks or to me. Happy to talk to anybody. We are one group of people, one nation, all headed in the same direction, okay? So let's work with each other and do the very best that we can, leading our nation to where it needs to be between government, industry, and academia. All on the same team. Don't ever forget that. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job.